Dr. Alasdair McDonnell.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I would, like others, welcome the opportunity to speak in this debate, and I particularly thank those who were responsible for making it happen. In my comments, I would wish again to extend my sympathy and that of my party to the relatives and friends of those killed in the Hyde Park bombs, and indeed, beyond that, to all victims and survivors generally. I don't wish to repeat or retread all of the ground well covered by others, and particularly by my honourable friend Mr Durkin, the member for Foyle. My main concern is that we must deal with the real issues that are raised by the Downey case in a mature and responsible way that doesn't do any further damage to the potential for political progress in Northern Ireland, political progress that's very necessary at this time. It is now very clear that serious errors were made within the judgment, in the management of Operation Rapid, and that those errors compromised victims' rights to justice. The way this process was administered came at the expense of establishing an honest and robust system that could have adequately dealt with any anomalies that were out there in terms of on-the-runs or others. That could have been done in an accountable and transparent manner. It is in the interests of the public and victims to provide honesty and clarity around all aspects of the establishment of this so-called administrative scheme. People that I have talked to want to know what went on. They want to know how those involved were selected to qualify for a letter and how some others in similar circumstances didn't qualify. And indeed they want to know, as others have referred to, colleagues have referred to already, how some people or why some people needed a royal pardon where they wanted for questioning but didn't quite qualify for the letters. There are many unanswered questions, and people out there want answers because confidence in the politics has been damaged, and we need to restore the confidence. We in the SDLP have repeatedly made clear our concerns regarding the letters and the entire shady process that followed the collapse of the so-called On the Run bill in 2006. Many of the aspects of that process which led to the collapse of the Downey trial still remain extremely unclear, and answers must be given as to how it all happened, why it happened, and who made it happen. I cannot, and I don't think any of us can, accept any disingenuous suggestion or bogus claim that somehow or other, by some system of osmosis, we were all aware of what was going on, or should have been aware of everything that happened after the collapse of that bill, even though then, on another hand, we're told that it had to be secret. You can't have it both ways, Madam Deputy Speaker. And claims have been cast around and about in some quarters that information was available to those that wanted it or those that needed it. That I want to refute and state clearly and unambiguously it was totally inaccurate. None of us that were near or around or about politics at that time were aware of the size and the shape of this. Certainly we knew there was an issue and a concern and a problem and an anomaly around on the runs, but nobody knew what was going on in the undergrowth. And this whole process, Madam Deputy Speaker, has defied the public's most basic expectation, political expectation of openness, transparency and good governance. And it is little surprise to me, and should be little surprise to anybody, that so much stress has been caused once this shady process begins to unravel. I hope that the view led by Madam Justice Hallett will begin to shed some clarity on how this process was so appallingly badly handled. And as a committee member of the Northern Ireland Affairs Select Committee, I will be doing all I can to pursue the truth and the whole truth through the inquiry set up. We have a responsibility to investigate this, but Madam Deputy Speaker, I do believe and would urge others to do so in a responsible manner. As far as I'm concerned, there is no room for political manoeuvring or grandstanding. We need to use the opportunities afforded to properly address the real concerns and answer the genuine questions. The questions of victims and survivors and their families who are vulnerable on the receiving end of this whole affair. In Northern Ireland, victims' issues are deeply sensitive issues, and there must always be empathy, respect and sensitivity given to victims, most of whom have suffered in silence for many years. Neither empathy nor respect nor sensitivity has been evident in the Downey case or the manner that it has been handled. It is my view that victims and survivors are our first priority and should never be made to feel that they are being treated as an irritation or a problem that can be wished away in the interests of political expediency. We in the SDLP will try to treat them at all times with respect, and any process that we support will deal with the past will have victims at the centre and will be keenly sensitive to their concerns. For many victims, the Downey case has confirmed their worst fears and further undermined their lack of confidence in the whole process of truth and justice and reconciliation. Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to turn for a couple of moments to the Haass process in the future, because the future is as important as the past, and I too am concerned, like others, that we can't allow ourselves to be prisoners of the past, and yet at the same time we have to deal with the hangover and the problems of the past. Some have tried to use this Downey case as an excuse to walk away from the party leaders' negotiations that have followed in the Haass discussions. We cannot allow this episode to become an excuse to do any further damage. We can't allow it to be used as an excuse to walk away from the negotiating table that Richard Haass helped to create. And the aftermath of the Haass process is in effect today and still continuing as leaders of the main parties in Northern Ireland meeting. We're dealing with the very real challenges of the past and parading and the flags. Those challenges are still with us. They've been there a long time, and they will remain as long as we fail to face up to them. Individual politicians and political parties, in my opinion, have little right to keep complaining about issues if they refuse to take responsibility or commit themselves to finding a solution to major problems. Through the Haass process, we arrived at a number of very positive options and concrete solutions to many of the difficult challenges that face us, especially in terms of dealing with our past. And I noticed Lord Eames last week said that the past and parading and issues related to flags are all intertwined. And if we solve one, we begin to solve the others as well. It is essential for all of us in Northern Ireland that we do all that we can to arrive at honourable compromises on all of these issues. We cannot let the Downey case be used as an excuse for not dealing with the past. Rather, for me, it demonstrates the very reason why we must actively and honestly and honourably deal with the past and get to grips with it. It provides us with the impetus to get our feet firmly back at the negotiating table and make the hard yards on the hardest of problems. It's unfortunate that the Ulster Unionist Party have signalled their intention to detach themselves from those negotiations. Madam Deputy Speaker, we need honest engagement and honourable compromise now, going into the future more than ever. The problems that we have out there won't go away until we face them in a mature and honest way. The Downey issue represents the perfect example of where covert side deals and shabby quick fixes can be used for short term, but they're very damaging in the long term. What we badly need is honest and open and transparent discussions with honourable conclusions. And finally, I want to draw brief attention to the fact that we have, in the last 20 years, benefited from an enormous amount of goodwill across the world in our efforts in a peace process. We mustn't squander that by failing to take on the hard issues that will allow us to finish the job and define a better future for Northern Ireland. I spent a week in Washington and New York recently, and I was very heartened there where President Obama, Vice President Biden echoed the words of President Clinton in his recent visit to Derry. They said, finish the job, and I would appeal to all to help us do that. Thank you very much.